Well, MTG fans and Dragon folk alike, get ready. Because if you thought the Legends edition to Dominaria United was good, just wait till you see what the Brothers War has for you. Dragon folk, welcome on into the channel. How are you all doing today? I hope you're doing just as great as I am. Obviously, we have to talk about the very, very expensive elephant in the room, which of course is the serialized cards that are being introduced in the Brothers War. So today, as the recording of this video, they did the first, what do they call them, pre-beats of the Brothers War, the next set to come out in the standard rotation. Now, this set is going to bring us back to the Brothers War, but it's going to be in a modern lens, is what they called it. So I'm not sure what exactly that means, but what it does mean is that there's a lot of really, really cool stuff going on with the Brothers War. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to specifically talk about the topic that is probably the kicker of all of this. So serialized cards are being introduced in the form of these artifacts that are special to the Brothers War, and these artifacts can be found all throughout the set of the Brothers War in draft, set, and collector boosters, right? You can find all of these artifacts, which are, some of them are not standard legal, most of them actually are not. Is it most or all? I think all of them are actually not standard legal. So you kind of got to think of it like the Mystical Archive cards, right? Mystical Archive, while it did have some cards that were standard legal, things that were just reprinted. Instead, what we have here is a bunch of old artifacts from older sets in a retro frame. I'll go ahead and put them up right here. So that is the retro frame of some of these artifacts that you'll find in any of these booster packs. So you're able to find them in anything. So I don't think it's necessary. I would like to equate it to the Mystical Archives, because in the Mystical Archives, you're able to find one in every pack. Yada, yada. Now, do I know there's going to be a slot for them? No. We're not going to know more about the actual set until I think the 4th. We're probably going to find out a little bit more, but if not the 4th, it's on the 27th, we'll find out the contents of the set, how to properly collect it, so on and so forth. How this one works is you have these artifacts. These artifacts will also be shown in a sketch blueprint art. It's much like the sketch art from Modern Horizons 2, except it's more dark. It's kind of like a darker, almost like a tan piece of paper that they had this drawing on, and it's supposed to show like the schematics for these artifacts in question. So it is a pretty cool, interesting thing. We have such stuff like the Wormcoil Engine, right? Wormcoil Engine is getting a reprint, I guess, technically, in this set. So with those, though, they introduced serialized cards. Now, for those of you who don't know what serialized cards, I'll go ahead and put one up right here. The serialized cards are actually a set of cards that they've only made a certain amount of, and that, out of X. So in this situation, right, it is 500 versions of this specific Wormcoil Engine that were ever created. And this is only indicated by the fact that this is a foil version, a double rainbow foil is what they called it. A double rainbow foil version of a card indicates its serialization, not to mention the little stamp that will be on the card letting you know what number out of 500 that artifact is. So it looks like all of the sketch arts, all of the blueprint arts, I think is what people are going to call them now, those arts are going to be highly collected. And the reason I say they're going to be so highly collected is because of the fact that we've already had an introduction to serialized cards in other TCGs, as well as Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering came out with a card much like this, called Visceral Seer, right? Visceral Seer has already been a card in Magic the Gathering, but you'll see this one is backwards. And not only is the card backwards, but it is also stamped with a number out of 100. So there's only 100 versions of this card, and this card was printed as a secret special card in a super drop. I can't remember what it was. It was something like a year ago, like September, August. It was the same super drop as the Phyrexian Praetors, which may not have been a super drop. I think it might have been its own special thing. As most secret layers do, when you open up the product, there is a chance you get a special little card in the back of it that was not part of the secret layer. And so right now we have things like the extended art slivers going through and the persistent petitioners. Those are all extra cards that are in some of these, these secret layers. So we've already seen Visceral Seer, and we also have data on Visceral Seer. Now, I'm not sure what it's like on other websites. I only check TCGPlayer. But of the people who sold their versions of this Visceral Seer, this backwards serialized Visceral Seer, they sold for, at a minimum, $3,500. Now, is that going to indicate much in regards to these cards? Well, it is good data to think about, right? Serialized cards tell us exactly how much of a card exists and how many there are and what number, right? Some people like to have special numbers, like 1 out of 500 for, let's say, the worm coil engine. But some people like funny things, right? Like 69 out of 100 or 420 out of 500, right? Those are going to be like more sought after in a meme way, probably, because of their numbers associated with them. But there are going to be 500 versions of each of these double rainbow sketch blueprint retro artifacts. that's a mouthful. And that is going to be the big chase for this, right? Everybody was so hyped about a chase, right? And then, of course, you looked at things like Dominaria United, and you saw the chase for the Legends card, and everybody went, well, you're chasing like a common Legends card. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, there is a better way to go about buying cards from Legends. You know, you can just buy the singles. If you buy the singles, you, spend less money overall. Even if you bought a Tabernacle of Pendrell Vale, your chances of pulling one from a Dominaria United collector's box, you'd probably have to spend more than $5,000 to even think about pulling something that is even remotely close to a Tabernacle of Pendrell Vale. And so that is where the difference lies. But with this, these are chase. And we're not too sure what the actual percentage of pull rates are for this. I believe we find that out on the 4th, or we find it out closer to the end of October. But another thing that I've noticed is that I don't know whether or not this was due to this, or maybe they just, Jeff Bezos got some extra information from Wizards before they went live today. But the box price for a collector booster box of the Brothers War up on Amazon right now is going for $60 more than it was previously. And I was very happy that a patron of mine wanted to attempt to buy one previously when it was $217 a box. And we went about going through that, and I'm going to be opening that for him when, the time comes, when it gets to my door. But luckily, I've locked in that $217 price. These boxes are probably going to actually go for more than what most think. We had an opportunity with Legends, right? There's still a chance in Legends that you pull reserved list cards, which is pretty powerful in and of itself, but there are still a version of all of these cards available floating around the market today. Are they anywhere near pack fresh? No, but they do exist. So if you ever need any of these cards for play, you can do that as far as the Legends cards go. But for this, all of these cards are cards that already exist. So you don't need to worry about whether or not you need one for your deck or anything of the sort, or if it's gotten a reprint. And the fact that it is getting a reprint is very good because, a lot of them are pretty expensive. And they're not only getting a regular retro frame option, but they're also getting that blueprint retro frame option. And with both of those, right, that's 2 versions of the card that are now being put into the market on top of all the other ones that already exist. And then you have the serialized versions of these cards. So we've only seen the serialized version of Wormcoil Engine, but it was explained to us through Blake that all of these artifacts that have a blueprint frame or blueprint art, I guess, are going to be serialized. And we're not sure how many that is, but if all of these cards are out of 500, there's at least odds that somebody out there is going to get one. And it's going to be, I don't know, probably the people who spend the most, right? But the kicker here is that these cards are actually going to be worth something. I don't care if it's a common. I don't care if they reprint a common artifact. If it has a little sticker down there that says 1 out of 500, you can bet your bottom dollar that that is going to go for thousands of dollars. And the actual card could go for $2. But because of that stamp, because of that little serialized stamp that's on the bottom of the art, that is what's going to increase the price of these, right? These are true collector's items. Along with the, obviously, having a playset of every card from Legends is pretty collectors, but these are the things you want to look for, right? This is right up there with things that just are impossible to find and will never be printed in the same way, right? The Kamigawa Neon Dynasty Neon Inks were not serialized. And if they were, they would probably hold a higher price point as of right now. But they don't because, well, there are a lot of blues and a lot of greens, and there seem to be a decent amount of reds, but reds are the hardest to find, and still at least $1,500 for a red neon ink Hitotsugu. But we also don't know the data on those, right? I have a feeling that they printed a lot of Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, and because they printed a lot of it, and there's no way that the masses are going to open every single collector box of Kamigawa Neon Dynasty to ever have been printed, I don't think that we will ever see the full data on how many reds, how many blues, how many greens were printed. I think the best we can tell is how many yellows were printed because those are going to WPN stores. But for the serialized cards, we know how many are printed. We know how many would be out there. We have a number. There are 500 of this Wormcoil Engine out there in these packs. And the only way you're going to be able to get these serialized cards, did I mention, are in collector's packs. So, of course, right, you've got to buy the premium product to get the premium product. It just makes sense. Now, here's the interesting part. We're again locked in a same situation where you have a lot of opportunity for collectors to do really well here in regards to possibly pulling something if you so much open, let's say if you open up a case. Let's say there's it should be a serialized card a case. That would make zero sense. But let's say an estimate. If there's a serialized card a case, right? That gives it a case premium, which has been a trend of Wizards of the Coast recently with the textured foils from Double Masters 2022, with the Dominaria United Legends cards, with there being, roughly an average of 2 per case if you don't split it up or whatever. Like, the odds are pretty good for buying a case. So if there happens to be a chance that one of these many artifacts that have blueprint frames are in a case, they'd have to sell multiple cases over and over and over for the chance at that, right? And then luckily, the cool thing about this is that if we find out the percentage and we find out how many exist, this one may be close enough to us finding out what the actual print run is for the collector boxes for this set. Because if we know how many are in there and we know they appear in X percentage of boxes, then we know how many packs are being made, roughly. So, of course, though, we have to think about the fact that I'm sure Wizards is keeping 1 of 500 in most. At least I would if I were the printing company. I'd keep number 1 of 500 or 500 of 500, whatever it works out to be. but that's what I'd keep. Rolling back to what I was going to say previously, because I'm getting so incredibly, like, one, exhausted because they're already like, oh, hey, you should buy the premium product. Because, yeah, you can get the blueprint cards from any box, right? But you can't get the serialized cards from any box. You can only get them from collectors. So this leads me to the same question that is kind of along with Dominar United, right? Let's say these cards go for, I don't know, upwards of $2,000, right? $2,000 for a serialized card of any number. Let's just estimate that any number goes for above $2,000. This is all hypothetical. Don't at me in the comments, or do. Like, let me know what you guys think these are going to go for. But I want to know, is it going to be still more beneficial for collectors to just wait, right? I personally think that if a collector waited and that collector was able to pick up a serialized version of a card from, let's say, an LGS or another small business online, or maybe TCGPlayer, maybe people are selling the serialized cards. If that happens to be the case, personally, I would rather spend $2,500 to guarantee myself one of these cards, and to know that pretty much no matter what condition it's in, it has its own special, frame to it, right? This is a different way to look at the grading of cards, because no longer is it just like, oh, here's the corners and is there any damage on the card, or dents or anything? Obviously, you want it in as close to near mint condition. But if you can get a mint version of one of these serialized cards, I'm talking like pull it with gloves, sleeve it, double sleeve it, put it in a top loader, send it off to PSA to get it graded. These are going to be gold mines. Gold mines. And if you're guaranteed one in a case, you better hope that you pre-order cases, because wow, these are going to go for a lot. And I know they will, because these are the future of chase cards. Sports cards have been doing it for a long time, and a 1 out of 1 is the best you can get as far as sports cards go. And even 1 out of 25s, 1 out of 50s, right? Those still also go for a lot. When you get into like the 1 of 500s, that's not as good. They don't sell for as much. But when you narrow that gap, and even if it is 1 out of 500, you get any number out of 500 for these Wormcoil engines or whatever artifact you end up getting. The fact of the matter is that there's not a better version, right? There's not a better version of Wormcoil engine. This is going to be the most collected thing in Magic's history. And guess what? The odds of somebody getting all 500 of a card, probably next to nothing. But what it's going to do is it's going to actually raise the rates of the card, because there are some people with a lot of money out there, and I'm sure they will pay a premium to own all 500 of a artifact that they really enjoy. But we'll see what the market looks like with everything coming through. If you made your pre-order for Brothers War already, congratulations. You definitely made a good call and a good guess on whether or not the product is going to be worth it. Brothers War is definitely going to be one for the books, and I certainly believe that we are going to be seeing a big push for these serialized cards throughout the years. So we'll see exactly what happens and how they move forward. But let me know in the comments down below what you feel about serialized cards, right? How do you feel about them? Do you feel like they're a necessary addition in this time of Magic, where everything is shiny and all the shiny stuff doesn't actually matter because it's all shiny? Or do you feel like serialized cards are not necessary for Magic? And that, granted, I mean, I know they're not necessary for Magic. I know they're not necessary. This is specifically for collectors, which is why they put them in collector boxes. So If you're a regular player and you don't care to purchase a $3,000 version of Wormcoil Engine, don't. Just don't. But if you happen to pull one, you need to get it. You need to get it double sleeved in a top loader and sent out to PSA immediately. Immediately. I cannot stress this enough that these are going to be the things you're going to want slabbed. Not the commons from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. Not the commons from Kamigawa. Not the commons from Mirrodin. Not the commons from Tempest. This is what you're going to want to have graded. And now while you're down there leaving that comment, make sure to like the video and also subscribe to the channel as well if you have not already. We do have a little video I can put on up here. That is the link to our 500 subscriber giveaway that we are going to be doing once we hit 500 subscribers, which we are, I think at the time of this video, we're about 25 off. So go ahead and head on over there, leave your comment, subscribe to the channel, and you can be one to win this Verdant Catacombs. I know it's a fetch land, and now they seem like they're worth nothing, considering that's the case, but it's a Zendikar Rising Expedition Verdant Catacombs, so it is worth something. And hopefully it does well in your Golgari deck, or whatever deck you run that has black-green. So thank you all so much for watching. I do really appreciate your support, and I will see you all very soon. Nerd out.